Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Don't Tell Mama. As a courtesy to our performers, we ask that there be no picture taking, no texting. Please turn off all your cell phones and keep the aisles clear for the performers and the wait staff. Thank you so much, and enjoy the show. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Meg Flather.
Well, I think she'd be very pleased. Sally enjoyed that I wore black, but she appreciated a little color and a softer lip. So I went with the softer lip. I took this picture of her. It was our first visit after vaccination in her garden. And we talked a lot about this day and what she wanted. And she wanted all of us to gather in her garden. But the problem is, her garden isn't big enough for all her friends. So we've created her garden here at Don't Tell Mama, and we are so thrilled that you are here. So I'm going to start with a little reading. A Parable from the Sailing Towns by Henry Scott Holland. I stand upon the seashore. A ship spreads her white sails in the morning breeze and heads out across the blue ocean. She is an object of beauty and strength, and I stand and watch her until at length she hangs like a speck of white cloud upon the horizon. At my side, someone says, "There, she's gone." Gone? Gone where? Gone from my sight. That is all. She is just as large in mass and spar and hull as when she sailed close by. Her diminished size is in my vision alone. At the moment when someone at my side says, "There, she's gone," other eyes watch her coming, and other voices take up the glad shout, "Here she comes!" And that is I. So now, to tap Sally's Episcopal childhood, we'd like to sing a beloved hymn, since we are here to gather together. Matthew will play the melody. Please refer to your song sheets and sing out. We'll do the first and second verse, and if you have the song sheets. And Matthew, my son. Yes, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Lights up.
We're old.
Lights up, darling.
They are.
They are. Oh, they are. Okay. Well, that's cabaret for you.
You let me know, I can keep going.
Okay.
We
brother, Tom Wingfield. By Ryan Keating. He's going to tell us the story of Sally's life.
That was so Mrs. Miniver. Sarah Winfrey Darling. Perhaps a little long and too formal a name for a marquee. How about Sally Darling? So much more musical in the way it rolls off the tongue. Let's hear it. Say it, please.
Sally Darling.
One more time. Listen.
Sally Darling.
Oh, Sally Darling. Sally. Sally. Are you there? Say it again, please.
Sally Darling.
Oh, yes, I do believe she must be. She is certainly here. After all, this is Don't Tell Mama, where we witnessed her glorious sunsetting with Matthew Martin Ward. We witnessed her very special gifts. How would Sally able to do that, we would marvel. How high is the bar she is setting for us? Could we reach it? I first encountered Sally at the much beloved and lamented Salon, where I heard her sing Noel Coward. I must admit, I found her to be a little more than intimidating. Oh, yes. There was a reserve to her, I thought, being the shy person myself, was impenetrable. Who was this woman who often sat in the back at a table for one, halfway back, never in the front, nursing her scotch. And if Classical Corner were on and it was Matthew Martin Ward at the keyboard, she would throw her head back as if in ecstasy. Who was this woman? What was her story? And then I happened upon an exhibit of headshots at the Lincoln Center Library for the Performing Arts. And there in a glass case was a volume of Player's Guide, Actresses, 1969 to 1970. The book was open to D.A.R., not the daughters. But there in the middle was Sally Darling with her hair swept up. Film credits, the night they raided Minsky's, Stop, Kiss Me Kate, Carousel, The King and I, Television, Another World, The Nurses, AEA, After SAG, Circle 75454. If you know, you know. It's nice to discover things about people, but I had not yet dared to say, hello, Sally. And then one Sunday afternoon, I was rushing up 8th Avenue on my way to Don't Tell Mama to get my seat down front. And who was walking in front of me but Sally Darling? She is walking briskly, muttering to herself. I try and pass her fast so she won't see me, but she does. And when she does, she grabs my arm and says, "Oh, my dear, I'm so worried about these lyrics. How do you manage with all your songs? You don't seem to have a problem." And the ice was broken. Now, Meg had asked me to share with you a little of Sally's life before we knew her. Well, of course, that was catnip to me. Down the rabbit hole, and it was a deep and wide rabbit hole, searching for clues to her life. But don't worry, there is not going to be a quiz after. And so I would like to share with you my Sally Darling dossier. We all knew, of course, Sally was a grand and gracious Southerner, but her roots began in New York with her great-grandfather. So here goes, and it's a mouthful, so please bear with me. James Sands Darling, born in New York City in 1832, the son of an English-born ship joiner. When he was 11, his mother died, and he was hired out to work on a Long Island farm. As a young man, he went into the lumber business. After the Civil War, he brought his wife and one-year-old son to Virginia on a schooner loaded with lumber to help rebuild the houses that had been burned down in Hampton. Now remember part 2 of Gone with the Wind? When the credits, it opens up with the Max Steiner score and a placard, and then the carpetbaggers came. Well, that's a pejorative term. Although a Yankee, James Sands Darling was what Southerners would come to refer to as a 65er, someone who came to the South after the war to help with the Reconstruction, not to be confused with the carpetbaggers who came to exploit. He was to make his mark building the first trolley car line in Hampton, and later he would make his fortune in oysters. On the Hampton Peninsula, he would build what would become the Darling ancestral home, Cedar Hall. It would be written later, what is impressive about the Darlings is their Yankee enterprise and generosity. There are countless stories of the help they have given to those less fortunate. Their civic spirit was wonderful to behold. A noteworthy anecdote. In 1898, 2 years before he died, J.S. sold his trolley line, and the profit was $70,000 more than he had expected. He gave a party for his trolley employees on Christmas Day at Cedar Hall and divided the sum equally among them. From the Sentinel, December 28, 1898, no one was overlooked, from the man who greased the tracks to the payroll clerk. The old man wept as he thanked his men, and they wept in gratitude for this unexpected gift. Grit, backbone, and generosity. This is the stock from which our Sally descended in her DNA. Sally's father, also named James Sands Darling, was born in 1903 at Cedar Hall. But let's fast forward and get to the clippings. From the Newport News, June 9th, 1925. Mr. and Mrs. Walter Russell Winfrey of Lynchburg, Virginia, have issued invitations to the marriage of their daughter, Miss Sarah Doniphan Winfrey, and Mr. James Sands Darling, son of Captain and Mrs. Frank Wilkinson Darling of Hampton. Miss Winfrey, a granddaughter of the much beloved and lamented Reverdy Winfrey, for many years the rector at the historic St. John's Church, graduated this month from Hollins Institute, and besides being a most charming young girl, is one of the most active of the young society girls of Lynchburg. Mr. Darling is a most active young businessman of this city, being associated with his father in the oyster business. A graduate of Yale and Oxford, he has traveled extensively and recently completed a course in chemistry to fit him further for broadening the great oyster business. He is a member of the Hampton Rotary Club and has been active in the work at St. John's in every civic movement of this community. Mr. Darling will bring his bride to Hampton after an extended European honeymoon tour. They will reside at Cedar Hall. Mr. and Mrs. Darling were 22 and 19, respectively. 3 children in 4 years, James, 1929, Anne, 1931, and Sarah Winfrey, 1933. The next clipping is dated Friday, July 29, 1938, from the Reno Gazette-Journal under the heading Decrees Granted. Sarah Winfrey Darling from James Sands Darling. No cause given. In Nevada, a divorce did not necessarily need a cause. It just needed 6 months residency. It was 1938. Okay. Fast forward 6 weeks later, September 17th, 1938, from the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Mr. and Mrs. Russell Winfrey have announced the marriage of their daughter, Mrs. Sarah Darling, to Mr. DeLoss Russell Thornton of New York City, which was celebrated Monday, September 12th in Elkton, Maryland. The Thorntons will live in New York. Now, curious thing, it was the law in 1938. You had to live in Nevada 6 months to get a divorce, but you had to wait 6 weeks to remarry. And what if Mrs. Thornton? Here's the Reader's Digest version. The Thorsons made their marital home in New York City, where each pursued a career in the arts. She as a writer and he as an actor. Subsequently, they moved to Chicago, where she created and hosted a popular children's radio program. Hollywood beckoned, and they would settle in Studio City. Russell Thorson would become a well-known supporting player in television. Mrs. Thorson would continue writing for the radio, and from time to time she would have a poem published. Shall I? Sally, what? Oh. Keep it short, she says, but go for it. From the Saturday Evening Post, August 17th, 1953. The title of this poem is Backyard Barbecue. The charcoal smoked. The steak was burned. The corn was raw. The hosts concerned. The meal was late. The children whined. Mosquitoes swarmed and amply dined. The night was cold, the moon obscured, and I, the guest, was barbecued. The line, the children whined. I'm not sure what to make of it. But in Hampton, James Sands Darling became what in 1930s must have been a very rare thing, the custodial parent. But looking at it from a 2026 perspective, I'm struck at the courage it must have taken for Sally's mother to lay claim to a different life. How brave it must have been to leave her children and husband behind. And I wish I could have asked Sally about her mother's bravery and how it played a role in Sally's fierce independence. Sally would often recall her father in conversation and how he was so much more than just a father. He ensured her developing interests were tended to and nurtured. And I found a Facebook post on the site, The History of Hampton, and Cedar Hall came up. Someone writes, Cedar Hall, when the Darling children lived there, was full of music, theater, and laughter. There was always something going on, reading groups, musical recitals, putting on plays. It was a wonderful place to visit. Yes, the days and nights of Sally Darling are coming into focus. For high school, Sally attended St. Anne's School for Girls in Charlottesville, an Episcopal boarding school. And on Ancestry, I found her entire high school yearbook. Someone had uploaded The Saint, class of 1950, which gives us a window into how Sally spent her high school years. It would come as no surprise to many of us that anyone who knew Sally herself, that she was the editor-in-chief of the yearbook. Oh yes. And for the senior biography, Sally decided to do something a little different. She decided to break the mold. Rather than list the activities undertaken in the years, over the 4 years, in a favorite quote, "So tiresome in yesteryear," Sally told me. She did something rather brilliant. Have a classmate anonymously write an Austenian-style character description. It would put the girls on high alert that senior year. Who would be writing about them and what they would say. And here is a snapshot of our Sally at 17. Who is the girl who carried off the nerve-wracking job editing The Saint this year? Who captained the second hockey team, scored at basketball, gave her time to dramatics and civil service activities? lent her dulcet tones to the Glee Club for 4 years, and at times has managed to get the entire wing in an uproar with her stick-in-the-mud walking technique. Our Sally Darling. She will talk for hours on end, sometimes sense, but often nonsense, if someone gets her started. And beware of disturbing her if she is in her room listening to one of her mother's radio programs. Her concentration is at a peak. It's been fun working with her this year. I never realized her dogged determination. Sally entered Wellesley as an English major, and she exited with a degree in drama. At the all-girls Wellesley, Sally wore the pants. She appeared as Iago, Hamlet, Petruchio, and Captain Bennett. But when she was a senior, she discovered her true talent was in directing after directing a school production of The House of Bernard Alba. Sally's father died at Cedar Hall when she was in college, and she returned to Hampton after graduating. It would be interesting to note, as a sidebar, that her brother James Sands Darling III did not go into the oyster business. He went into the music business, and he was the organist at St. John's Church for many, many years. And he was very interested in the music of Virginia and the Revolution, and a real scholar. But anyway, Sally spent her days as an assistant program director at a radio station, as well as hosting a classical radio program. Nights were spent acting or directing with the Hampton Little Theater, a group her mother had founded in the early 1920s. She closed out the 1950s as Mrs. Anna in The King and I, headline from the Hamptonian, May 30th, 1959, Mrs. Thorson attends show King and I. The King and I, the musical play starring Miss Sally Darling, presented by the Hampton Little Theater and playing to capacity crowds, was attended by Miss Darling's mother, Mrs. Russell Thorson, who flew in from Hollywood to see her daughter's debut in the part of Mrs. Anna. Following the closing performance, Miss Darling will fly to Los Angeles to spend the month of August with the Thorsons. The 60s. Sally would turn 30 in 1963. When Mary Richards turned 30, she moved to Minneapolis. When Sally Darling turned 30, she moved to New York City.
Yeah.
Appearances on all the major soaps, film work, curriculum vitae impressive, as you heard via the Player's Guide. Fun fact, she ushered in 1970 with a musical adaptation of The Drunkard, music and lyrics by a boy from Brooklyn, Barry Manilow. Another fun fact, Sally scripted 2 episodes of Gunsmoke. I assume her experience with pants rolls gave her special insight into Festus. Now, I don't like to gossip, but I can almost hear Sally saying, "Go for it." Sally was married briefly. I believe it must have been in the 1970s, but while she didn't keep a veil of secrecy over having been married, it wasn't necessarily common knowledge. Sally told me that she did not want to be beholden to a man. Goodness, no. I couldn't find anything online or in the archives about it. But I think because she had a cabin in Canada for many years, he may have been a Canadian.
Huh.
I know it wasn't Christopher Blunt. It appears, and this is all conjecture and detective work, Sally returned to Virginia for most of the 70s. She spent that decade serving her community, returning to radio, working with the local symphony for evenings of music with spoken word, and most importantly, directing theater. From a 1978 interview with a local paper, Sally explains, "I get tremendous satisfaction out of helping other people do the best job they can possibly do on stage. In the first place, I feel I am better at directing than at acting, so I naturally prefer to direct. Could you be a little more specific? Asked the interviewer. As an actor, you're concerned with yourself, how you look, how you project. Frankly, it's an ego thing. On the other hand, as the director, you are concerned with the overall play and trying to actualize the author's intent. Sally returned to New York for good in 1980. She found steady work as a dubbing artist for foreign films, the most difficult thing in the entertainment world, it said, and started through the Lighthouse recording books for the blind. Curiously, her mother had spent much of her later life working with the Braille Institute. This morphed into a very busy recording career of books on tape, from The Official to Kill a Mockingbird to Tina Turner, My Life, nearly my story, nearly 300 books in all. Yes, imagine Sally as Tina Turner. Buy the book, you will be impressed. Now we will move to cabaret. Sally began venturing into cabaret in earnest as a director. At some point, she directed revues at the King Cole Room of the St. Regis Hotel with such stars as Lisa Kirk, Lorraine Sarabian, Larry Kurt, and Karen Morris. For her shows, she collaborated with Paul Trueblood and was a staple across the street at Danny's Skylight Room. And Sally's collaborations with Matthew Martin Ward are how, of course, most of us came to know her. And together they created 7 shows, from Noah Coward to Cole Porter to B. Lilly to Candor and Ebb. Sally won the Hanson Award in 2015. And a Bistro, I gotta get out of the past. And a Bistro Award for her Noah Coward show in 2016. And she and Matthew were working on their 8th show when the pandemic hit. Meg was worried about Sally and that she would not do well in isolation. And it turned out there was a play they both adored, and Sally had directed it twice, The Glass Menagerie. You know, the play you read in the 10th grade about the Wingfields, the family who's been abandoned by the father long ago. And Meg thought we should all get together and read it, if only she could cast it properly and get a director. Well, Sally would be Amanda, no question. She asked me to be Tom, and she brought in Jeff Harner as the gentleman caller, and Barry Kleinborg to lead us. And we would read it salon style in Sally's living room. And for many Sunday afternoons in that garden apartment on Pacific Street, we would read through it, discussing the characters and their foibles before inviting a few friends in to hear it, salon style. And those afternoons were transcendent, I think, for all of us, because we came to understand what family is, and we were able to illuminate the characters through our own experiences. And I think we all knew very early on that as Sally was beginning to decline, those afternoons would become special and almost otherworldly. Sometimes I would arrive early to find Sally fretting, quite nervous, clenching her breathalyzer. We would sometimes talk about politics, we would talk about the play, we would talk about our characters and their motive, abandonment. Why did Tom invite the gentleman caller? Was it for Laura, or was it for himself? We had many discussions. But the last time, she was very nervous, and she asked for a little scotch before the others arrived, and I said, I will give you a little scotch, but you will go out there and you will give them the performance of your life. And of course she did. And there was a moment that always stopped my heart. It is the scene where where Tom tells his mother he has arranged for a gentleman caller for his sister, but warns her not to expect too much from Laura because she is peculiar. And in that moment, Sally would never fail to reach over and place her hand on my wrist, as I would say, Laura doesn't seem that way to us because she is ours. We love her. And there you have it. You love somebody because they are yours. Sally was ours, and we love her.
Hi, I'm Becca Kidwell. When I was thinking about what I wanted to say today, I kept coming back to one simple sentence. Sally Darling was love. I met Sally in 2016 when I started going to the Salon open mic. She was one of the first people who welcomed me into the cabaret world. She was always kind, gracious, and just pure class. I couldn't help thinking that, in a way, I had met my own Dame Julie Andrews. She was so talented and so smart. I remember wondering, how did she remember all those lyrics? She would perform Noel Coward and Cole Porter in her 80s while I was in my 40s struggling to remember my own lyrics. For the next 4 years, we were always happy to see each other, encouraging one another whenever our paths crossed. But it wasn't until lockdown that our friendship truly deepened. Through Meg Flather Sisterhood, I found something I had rarely experienced before. Outside of my husband and my family, I found a place where I finally felt safe enough to simply be myself. One of the first gifts I ever gave Sally was my favorite book, A Wind in the Door by Madeleine L'Engle. As I prepared these remarks, I found myself returning to it. Madeleine L'Engle writes, "Human beings need deepening places too, and far too many never have any. Sally was one of mine." Somewhere during those months, she stopped being someone I admired and became my best friend. She was always there for me. More than once, I call her blubbering on the phone, unable to get a coherent sentence out, and she would just laugh and say, "Oh, love, I can't understand the words you're saying. Just breathe. I'm here." And she was right. I probably wasn't making any sense. I definitely wasn't making any sense. But she never needed me to make sense first. She just needed me to breathe. Then she would patiently listen to whatever had sent me into a tailspin. She never judged. She simply loved me. Another line from A Wind in the Door says, "Love isn't how you feel, it's what you do." That was Sally. During lockdown, Meg suggested that Sally begin reading stories online.
It was a beautiful way for Sally to continue doing what she had always done so brilliantly, bringing literature to life. That became Tales and Cocktails. When Sally decided to read Pride and Prejudice, I remember thinking, why should only Sally's Facebook friends get to experience these wonderful stories? They deserve to be preserved. So I created a Facebook page and later a YouTube channel so that Tales and Cocktails could continue reaching people long after the live streams had ended. I never figured out the YouTube algorithm. I simply watched people find Sally. Week after week, comments arrived from around the world. From Russia, from Texas, from people who had lost their vision, from students discovering literature, and from listeners who had loved her audiobooks for decades. They weren't finding me. They were finding Sally. They were finding her kindness, her warmth, and her extraordinary gift for bringing stories to life. I'd like to share just a few of those comments. This wonderful, full of life old lady kept me alive. I listened to you read To Kill a Mockingbird every night. You helped me fall in love with audiobooks. Those are only 3 of hundreds. People Sally never met. People whose lives she changed simply by sharing stories. There's one final passage from A Wind in the Door that has stayed with me. Communication implies sound. Communion doesn't. I can't pick up the phone anymore and hear Sally tell me, "Oh, love, just breathe." But I don't believe our communion has ended, because Sally changed me. She helped me grow. She showed me what unconditional love looks like. And through Tales and Cocktails, I had the privilege of watching her change lives all over the world. Sally, you were one of my deepening places, and you will always be. Thank you. I love you. And now I would like to introduce Mr. Jeff Harmon.
That was just so beautiful. I was already just thinking, to be in your 90s and fill a room like this with a community that you were vibrant in, but to have her voice going on is just so beautiful. My name is Jeff Harner. I am Plaza 2, 8663. I am a dear friend and peer of Sally. And the one thing wrong with this recipe is Sally always had one ice cube that she made in a muffin tin. So it's this one big, that's the recipe. She was very proud that in her 90s her only medication was that and her puffer. And that was it. No other pills. I've heard it said, you don't remember what people say, you remember how they made you feel. I wish I remembered the things Sally said. I wish I could quote some of her pearls that just spilled out of her mouth every time she spoke. Just the cadence of her often stentorian delivery that seemed to come from a core of omnipotence, like an oracle with a wink in her eye, made almost everything either sublimely profound or unexpectedly ridiculous. But I can tell you how she made me feel. I always felt elevated when I was in the company of Sally Darling, whether in her audience or in her home or in a rehearsal or in our performances together. Sally first distinguished herself to me with her tribute show to Beatrice Lillie with Matthew Martin Burke. Now, of course, I have never seen Beatrice Lillie, so I'll never know if she got it right, but Donald Smith once told me that he saw Beatrice Lillie in the theater. He said the curtain rose and there was this tall stentorian woman in a gorgeous velvet gown at the bottom of a grand staircase. She sang her song and at the end hoisted her skirt, revealing roller skates, and roller skated off into the wings. So I thought, well, that's a tall order. It was going to take a very special artist to capture that kind of magic on all those different levels, and Sally Darling delivered the goods. I believe that that is as close as I will ever be to experiencing. She was a tether to what I imagine the magic of Beatrice Lillie was. I was delighted to champion for Sally to be part of the Cabaret Convention's tribute to World War II. I knew that Donald Smith would have loved her. Her commanding presence and her humor, and she performed for us. They're either too young or too old, and it was memorable. And then came this magical concept where the 5 MAC female vocalist nominees, and they were Celia Burke, Josephine Sanchez, Lisa Vigiano, Meg Flather, and Sally Darling. Now that is a glorious rainbow of talent. They decided to do a show together. And I got this SOS call that we need a director. So I came in and they each sang their songs for me that they intended to perform. And now I mean this with no shade to anyone on that bill, but they described the ocean as the turbulence and magic and drama of the waves churning on the top, and then the calm center at the bottom that is the flow. And it became immediately clear that Sally was going to be that epicenter for this constellation so that they could do what they did. And it was beautiful. And that brings me to the glass magic, the gift of hearing Sally Darling read the role of Amanda time and time again. That's my inheritance. That is the gift that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. I cannot imagine a more definitive version of Amanda. The musicality of her delivery and the veracity of her performance, because she just was. I don't know how else to describe it, but she just was. Now, Meg Flather and I, Meg, was Laura, and I was
A very mature Laura.
and I was the gentleman caller who's, on Social Security. But nonetheless, Meg and I studied acting together at NYU some 43 years ago, and I think Meg will agree with me that this was the best acting class we ever had, was being there in that room with Sally. Now, I have lost 2 great teachers this year. I lost Sandra Lee and Sally Darling. Now, I have heard it said that some people carry the message and some people are the message. And Sandra Lee carried the message. She was, as she was proud to say, a genius. I mean, she would tell you her IQ, and she was a genius with no filter, just, a barrage of veracity that you had to brace yourself for. It was wise and wonderful. Sally was the message. She was kindness, she was hilarity, she just was. She never was on a soapbox. She lived her life by the way she lived her life. She revered her work. She revered those she loved, admired, and respected. And Sally, darling, to me are action words. I feel incredibly privileged ever to have been in her constellation. And I can't remember what she said, but I know how she made me feel. This is not something that I wrote, but I do want you to know that service is something that I never thought of before in my life. I thought room service, you know? But service, the act of doing for someone without getting anything back in your life. If it were not for our dear friends here, Meg Flather and Becca Kidwell, who gave Sally the gift, well, and Matthew, I will add you to that list too. But when she became homebound, these two, just Meg Flather in particular, you gave her the grace and dignity to have the final bow that she wanted. So I just thank you. What is going to happen now is we're going to open the stage or the floor. If you cannot come to the stage to make comments, I will come to you with a microphone. Now, I love everybody here, but let brevity be our guide. We have a lot of people who would like to speak, so if you can keep it to, 3 to 4 minutes, that would be wonderful. Debbie Zecker is going to begin. Please welcome her to the stage.
Sally was a matriarch in this community, and not the matriarch who is overbearing and tells you what to do and how to do it, but she was the one who sat back and allowed you to come to her to soak in her wisdom and to be sanctified in her presence. I don't know whether she had any handicraft skills, but she was a weaver. She was a weaver of souls. And in the weaving that she did with the souls that she loved and knew, she created an extraordinary tapestry. And that is something that we will all carry with us for the rest of our lives. I want to share a piece by a dear friend of mine, Rabbi Chaim Stern, because it speaks to me of who Sally was and who she was to us. 'Tis a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, to hope, to dream, to be, and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. In Jewish tradition, we say, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the memory of the righteous is a blessing. We are blessed by the memory and by the life of Sally Darling.
Richard Skipper, if you can make your way to the stage, or would you like me to bring you a microphone?
I'll come up. Have you met Richard Skipper? Good evening, everyone. My introduction to Sally, like many in this room, was at the salon. I met her when she was first working on the Bee Lily show. And what I loved about her was how she workshopped everything before bringing it here. And the first time I saw her in this room performing, I immediately fell in love with her. What she was able to do with a song and with spoken word and then bringing it all together. She reached out to me shortly after that, hearing that I had done PR for a few people, and asked if I would work with her on a few shows. And so I worked with her on 2 of the shows that you did together. And one of the things that she shared with me, which you can elaborate on, was that she booked her shows based on the phases of the moon. She would book her show around the full moon, and she was just wonderful. And then I got a chance to interview her. It's on Richard Skipper Celebrates. It's always there, and that's one of the things that I love about doing these interviews, that it gives me a chance to preserve these people in their own words and in their own stories, so that they will always be there. Like the work that Becca did with putting these programs that she did were so brilliantly done, and they're there, so that she will always be with us. I remember when Carol Channing passed away, Tyne Daly spoke at her memorial, and there's a great poem, and I wish that I could quote it, but it's to always think of those that have gone on as being in the next room, because they are there. We don't see them, but we know that they're in the next room. And I know that Sally is in the next room. Love you, Sally.
Thank you, Richard Skipper. Let's give up Lori Krause.
Who doesn't want to follow Richard? So, I never, when asked if you want to say something, I never do because I'm shy about personal stuff like that. But I wanted to share this little story about an experience I had with Sally, because it's not at all about performance art and everything to do with her humanity and how she was an incredible teacher. Just before COVID, my mother was getting sicker and sicker. She had dementia. She lived on Long Island in her little apartment. My brother and I, because neither one of us could really take her in for various reasons, we started searching for a place where we could take her someday, a assisted living. And we found a place that we thought would be incredible. And then lockdown happened, and they wouldn't take her. And I couldn't get out there, my brother couldn't get to her. It was absolute chaos. And eventually, after a while, the assisted living said, okay, we'll open it up, because it was getting dangerous. I'm getting calls from her super that she's going to light the place on fire. She needed to be somewhere safe. And so we arranged it with the assisted living. We arranged that we would go out there to my mother and tell her that we were taking her to a doctor's appointment. This was their advice. They were wonderful. And they told us to take her there, and they would take care of her, but we couldn't stay. And so I will never forget that day. And we had been having, a lot of us vocalists got into this thing where we were having Zooms every week. And every week I'd be like, and this is happening with my mother, and blah, blah, blah. And so Sally knew the whole story. I am on the train to Long Island to go kidnap my mother and take her somewhere she knows nothing about. And my phone rings, and it is Sally. And I told Sally I was conflicted, I'm a bad daughter, I blah, 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 blah. And Sally calmed me, taught me, loved me, and I've never told anybody this story. But I needed for Sally to know that we know, and that she is still, I guess, an incredible human being. She got me to feel like I was doing the right thing. I was calmer. I was able to take care of my mother more effectively that day. It ended up being the greatest gift of her life. 2 weeks in, she never remembered she had an apartment. She was loved there and well cared for. And Sally helped me help my mother, and I will never forget her for that. Thank you, Sally.
Bob Diamond. Bob, would you like to come up, or would you like the microphone?
I'll hobble up.
All right.
Sally. God damn you. Sally, I knew from Salon, like so many, but I was somebody that didn't didn't feel at the time that I really was worthy to be there, especially with people like her. And one day I finally said to her, I really like what you do. And she said, you know what to do. Don't be afraid to do it. I will never forget that. I didn't really know her at the time. I got to know her an evening at Don't Tell Mamas. She had seen a show in this room and came into the other room for the show that I was there for, and it was a full room. And she said, could I sit with you? I said, sure. Well, we got to talk. Oh, and she had another scotch. There was a problem at the end of the show because she hadn't eaten. And I said, Sally, I'll take you home. And she said, no, you won't. I know what to do. I was so nervous, I called my husband and I said, what should I do? Should I just get in the car with her? And he said, no, she knows what she's doing. And about 40 minutes later, she called me and said, I'm home. Relax. And that's all she ever did, was let you relax. And then, a couple of years later, Ricky Bitzel's Broadway, Sally and I were asked by Ricky to do one song. And that particular song, we never rehearsed. I think we did one run through with Ricky. But the emotion that she gave to me in that song was unbelievable. And to this day, we talked about it. Possibly we would work it into another show. We met at 9. No, we met at 8. And to this day, I will never forget the feeling I had holding her hand on this stage when she was replying to me. Bless you, my love.
I feel like I'm going to pick up snippets of what other people have said and maybe connect them in a different way. I first encountered the idea of a Sally Darling at Matthew Martin Ward's studio. I would go to rehearse when we were doing the concerts upstate, and on your piano would be a piece of music or a binder, and it would say Sally Darling, and you were always talking about Sally Darling. So I formed this impression of what must a Sally Darling and I came up with a little sprite, an elfin little magical little creature. And then I met her. And she was more like the prow of a ship, a battleship, with extraordinary jawline, cheekbones. And as I got to know her, I discovered that she had as formidable a personality as she did a look and affect. I disagree with whoever said that she had a filter. She did not have a filter. Thought went in, comment came out. And some of them were, oh, do stop talking. Oh my God, is she still talking? But as I got to know her, I also got to understand that she had her opinion. So when we did the show, Jeff, where are you? The Together show, the 5 women, we all came in and brought our numbers in, and we're dead certain that we had the right numbers in the right order, and it was not working. It wasn't a show, it was little chunks of each of our individual shows, and I said, I think we need a director. And she said, no, we do not need a director. We are fine. We all were award nominees, we were fine. And somehow we eased Jeff into the room. I don't remember how we did it. But little by little, a show emerged with an opening number and each of us having the correct songs in the correct order. And to her credit, Sally came up to me at the end and said, love, you were right. We needed a director. I was wrong and you were right. And I thought, okay, so you're going to be tough on others, but you're going to be equally tough and honest with yourself. And I admire that. And over time, I got to appreciate what an extraordinary champion she was. She insisted that Meg do that evening of her music. You must do your music, which was a gift for Meg, which was a gift for every one of us who got to sing her music. And every time I come here and hear a singer incorporating one of Meg's songs into their show, I think, Sally did that.
Yes.
Meg did it because they're great songs, but Sally did that. And that's a gift for all of us. And she was a fierce protector if she believed in you. And she believed in you and your space in this world, and that you didn't have to twist yourself to be part of it or be diminished or different. It needed to accommodate you, and I thought that that was really extraordinary. I relied on her during COVID for her This Day in History post.
Oh, yes.
And her pictures of her garden. It was the only way I knew what season it was. I didn't know what day it was. But at least the pictures of the garden told us whether it was spring, summer, fall, or winter. And I am so glad that the last time I saw her garden. I went to one of those readings of the Glass Menagerie. It was extraordinary. She reveled in the language. The language was musical. She was dead honest about that character, but completely herself in her interpretation. And I will carry that with me forever. So, all in all, I have learned there can be a different kind of darling.
It's my honor to be here. I met Sally like so many other people at the salon in 2012, and I got the pleasure of knowing her more as I became her videographer over the years and over phone conversations that we've had here and there. She had a way of making people feel seen, welcome, and loved. And her laughter fills the room. I still can hear her laughter, that loud laughter. Even to this day, at this very moment, I can hear her laughing. And her kindness touched me from the day that I met her. And her spirit brought light to everybody she's around. And it's no surprise that she's loved by all of us here. Her life kind of reminds me that true greatness isn't really measured by accomplishments alone, but by the love we give and the lives we touched and the memories we leave behind. She did all of those very beautifully. Her face kind of appeared in my mind 2 weeks before she passed away, and I was prompted to give her a phone call. When I called her, the phone conversation was very short, and I could tell that she was weak, but somehow or another she knew about my little sister being sick, and she asked about, how's your little sister? And I was like, oh my God, it's like, how did she even know? Somehow she knew. But her spirit was so strong, and she told me at the very end to take care of yourself, love, and don't worry, I'll be all right, she said. Today, although we grieve the loss of her, I'm very grateful. I'm grateful to have the privilege of meeting her and knowing her, for the lessons she taught us through her strength and generosity, and for the joy that she brought into our lives. And I feel like in her way, her legacy is living on through all of us, because in our memories, we're keeping her alive. And I'm very grateful. Thank you, Sally.
This is the first time I've been to a memorial with a 2-drink minimum. But I think Sally Darling would have. Also, Ryan, I have not been able to think of anything since I heard the word barbecued. I only knew Sally Darling for a short time. 3 years ago, Jeff Harner had asked me if I would direct a staged reading of The Glass Menagerie as a benefit performance. Jeff was to be the gentleman caller, but the raison d'etre for this stage reading was Sally. Jeff and the other 2 cast members, Meg and Ryan, were friends of hers and knew what a fine actress she was. Sally and Amanda Wingfield were a natural fit. Like Amanda, Sally was a Southern transplant, originally from Virginia. But unlike Amanda, Sally had experienced a much-lauded cabaret career later in her life. I had heard her name many times over the years, but our paths had never crossed until now. Before we started rehearsals, the Williams estate informed us that the stock and amateur rights were not available in the New York area. There was a talk of a postponement, but aware that Sally's health was tenuous, so much so that she was unable to come into the city for a rehearsal, it was decided that a performance would be done in Sally's Brooklyn apartment for a very small and exclusive invited audience of 10 people. Sally's was wonderful in the role. She was gracious, genteel, funny, motherly, abrasive, yet above all, a romantic and a dreamer. Rehearsals were a joy because everyone was so committed and the script is so good, but also because we all knew how equally good Sally was going to be as Amanda. We did the performance, and then we did 2 more command performances, all in Sally's Brooklyn living room theater. We had scheduled a 4th, but Sally's health waned, and we kept postponing it until she felt she was well enough to do another. That day never came. For the handful of people who got to witness her Amanda Wingfield, and there are several in this audience, it will be a cherished memory. For the rest of us, as they say, you had to be there. That's it.
Is Sally's neighbor Frank here? Frank?
So long ago and far away in the city of Brooklyn lived a curmudgeon named David. And David had a tenant named John. And he always treated John very rudely. However, when David decided to pull up stakes and move to the West Coast, he offered John the brownstone at a very discounted rate. There's always been discussion whether David had a soft spot in his heart or in his head. But nonetheless, he offered him the discounted rate. John worked with Sally recording books, and John was talking with Sally one day on the phone, saying in the best memory of Max Bialystock, he was going to ask 2 of his maiden aunts in Connecticut to help him finance the house. And Sally said, somebody in the room said, well, I'll go in on it, John. I'll go in on it with you. And Sally said she looked around and didn't know who that was, because she was in the room by herself. But having made the offer, she decided to follow through. So they bought the house, and in the fall of 2000, Sally moved to Brooklyn. I'm a contractor in Brooklyn, so I did work for David, and then John, and then Sally, which is how we became friends. I would stop and visit with John from time to time, and we'd sit and chat. And when John passed away, I realized I didn't want to miss that opportunity to visit with Sally. So we set up a date every Tuesday night. I provided the scotch and she provided the ice. And we'd sit and we'd have a drink or two and snacks. And sometimes she provided the snacks and sometimes I did. But we'd sit and chat and spend an hour or so. And that was our weekly get-together. And that continued for about 15 years. Until she went in the hospital last fall. And the time was great. We had a good time. We got to know each other. We just talked about stuff. Now, Sally is a big believer in reincarnation. So I'm going to be watching children on the street. I see a 3-year-old singing Cole Porter.
Okay, here I come.
Can I stand up and I be seen down here? Sally and I, we met socially before we worked together. And Ted was usually with me, and the 3 of us got to be friends. And Ted and I were going on a road trip to New England. And I love cemeteries. I adore them. And it's all the history I love. And the cemetery in Cambridge was fabulous. And I said to Ted, oh, you know who's there? E. Power Biggs. And he said to me, there is no such person named E. Power Biggs. There certainly was, and we went, and later on, I said to Sally, we went up there, and I remember her saying, did you visit E. Power Biggs? I'm like, yes, and I looked at Ted, and she was my family adored him. He was an organ player, and she was so personable. I loved her because she kissed me on the lips, and I adored that. I thought my grandmother always did that. And when I was doing the Broadway shows, I had her in a few, and the roles were so different. The first one was, I don't know if you remember, the York Theater was doing You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, with kids. So I decided to put 80-year-olds in that role. And I had Bob Diamond as Charlie Brown. I had Barb Malley as Lucy, which is perfect. And I had Sally playing Sally. And I had Jay Rogers, who was the youngster, playing Snoopy. And Sally did the song that won Kristen Chenoweth with the Tony, My New Philosophy. And I was playing the piano, but I was watching her, and she'd never heard the song before. And she just was into it. So after that, I had her do the Anton Gigi with You, and I had her do Madame Armfeld in Night Music, and her liaisons was just incredible. And finally she did Agravain in Once Upon a Mattress with sensitivity, and every time she was just amazing with the character. She just brought it all out in one song, and it was all there for you to see. And I'll miss her kissing. Thank
you. Sally Darling was appearing across the street at Danny's Skylight Room, and I did not know her, and then it closed. So she came here, we had a long talk, and she was performing with Mr. Paul Trueblood. And they were wonderful. And then, when he passed, she was beside herself. And she couldn't imagine going on in cabaret or finding anyone whom she would relate to and who would understand her the way Paul Trueblood had. And she said to me, do I have any ideas? Well, I always have. And I created a list. There's so many notable accompanists, but number one on that list, and now when I think back, and everyone today was so splendid, and I saw Sally in a million different shows, and Ricky Ritzel shows, and her own shows. I was privileged to see the splendidly cast Glass Menagerie, unforgettable, and seeing her at the MAC Awards. But I think of all the gifts she gave us, and then I think, well, I did give her one. Matthew Martin Ward.
Please welcome to the stage, Matthew Martin Ward.
I'll wait here because it's my comfort place. Come back. Oh, well, you've seen it. Well, Sydney, thank you for stealing my opening 2 paragraphs. Now you know how I met Sally Darling. We started working on the show that she was scheduled to perform with Paul Trueblood called I'm a Stranger Here Myself. And she came to my studio, and we went through some of the music of the show, and she said she had this list, but she wasn't going to see anyone else on it. She was done. And that made me very happy. Sally sang and phrased everything just the way I always hoped my clients would, and rarely did. She had such a profound respect for not only the text of the words, but the text of the music. She was very meticulous about that, and I really appreciated that. She was an Aries, as some of you know, and unlike almost everyone else I worked with, she sang the very front of the beat. In fact, she sang ahead of the beat. She was the only person I could work with on Zoom, and we could actually stay in sync. She got those consonants out in front of the beat, and this is a great technique. If you're ever on stage and you need to project, if you put your consonants out ahead of the beat, you will be heard over the orchestra. It's not about volume, it's about timing. And I said, conductors must have loved you. And she said, yes, they did. Now, I hate to correct you, Ryan, but I'm counting 9 shows, including I'm a Stranger Here Myself, not 7. And they were choice, besides I'm a Stranger Here Myself, which I took over, the shows we originated together were Choices, The Way We Were, Matters of the Heart, Perspectives, Love, Lust, and Longing, Totally Noel, the Noel Coward tribute, the B. Lily Show, and Kurt Weill, Begot Candor and Ebb. That was the last show we did together, but we were working on 2 shows. As she became more housebound, I made the trip out to Brooklyn, delighted to do so, and we would work in her living room, and we were preparing not 1 but 2 new shows simultaneously. We talked about maybe coming in and doing them in New York. I'm sorry we never got to see them because we had some really good stuff in store. And I also really remember those afternoons in her apartment and the time we would spend afterwards, sometimes having a cocktail, roaming through her garden. She would name all the plants for me. I would nod wisely. Immediately forget. I would have to ask every single time for the names. She would always graciously reintroduce me to her garden. Now, I've talked about what a joy Sally was to play for, but that pales in comparison with the opportunity to do a duet with Sally Darling. She was, as people have noticed, a most generous actress, and I could look across the piano to her and see something so very real and something so very generous coming at me that you had to give it back. It was a wonderful thing, and there were a few duets in I'm a Stranger Here Myself, so we got some practice, and I said, we're going to do Thanks for the Memory. And she was very skeptical because she thought of it as Bob Holt's endlessly parodied theme song. But when we got into the lyric about this bittersweet lyric about this sophisticated couple who just can't quite make it work, and that relationship, those people became so very real to me. The more we did it, the more it became true. And from this and other duets at Salon, a few people assumed that Sally and I were married. Now, this is not as far-fetched as it seems. It would, of course, be a mariage blanc. If you know, you know. But besides having in common music and a joy in exercising our vocabularies and shared views on politics, we figured we would have a very good domestic arrangement because we both drank our coffee black. So there would be none of this running out of milk and sugar nonsense. And if our guests needed some, too bad if we don't have it. On the other hand, as has been mentioned, she was a confirmed Scotch drinker. My drink of choice is bourbon. So in our domestic arrangements, we would each have our own bottle and never worry about the other one drinking it down. In fact, she bought a bottle of Maker's Mark for me just to have on those afternoons at her house when we were rehearsing. And there's so much that happened and was a part of my life, a huge part of my life with Sally, that I'm running out of things to say. But everything you've heard is true, And I was a little concerned when Meg said she wanted me to perform Don't Put Your Daughter on the Stage, Mrs. Worthington. I wasn't sure if that was utterly apropos. It was indeed one of Sally's favorite Noel Coward songs, and in our Noel Coward show, we split the 4 verses into 4 segments throughout the show, with an increasingly imminently lurking Mrs. Worthington making her way to the stage till we finally couldn't stand it anymore. I was going to also say something about her prodigious memory, which was amazing. I gave her, just as a fun challenge, But Underneath by Stephen Sondheim, and she nailed it, as she tended to nail everything. Now, in the later times in Brooklyn, she actually went from, I would say, 100% memorization to sometimes even as low as 98%. And it frustrated her, but she would accept the correction and it would not happen that way again. And I should have made notes. The kind of compensation for perhaps this slight dimming of memory, and it's slight, you should all have such a memory, was, I think there was a great compensation because her singing was becoming even more personal, more vulnerable in this last part of her singing career. And she even learned to back phrase. It's not her natural element, but she, like everything else, she embraced it and understood it. So, going back to Don't Put Your Daughter on the Stage, I'm just going to conclude with one of Sally's pieces of patter. It might have been choices, might have been perspectives, I don't know. But she got on the subject of critics' reviews and quoted this one, which was somewhere in her career. A critic wrote, "I wish I could tell you something about Sally Darling's performance, but I can't stand to look at her." Don't put your daughter on the stage, Mrs. Worthington. Don't put your daughter on the stage. The profession is overcrowded and the struggle's pretty tough. And admitting the fact she's burning to act, that isn't quite enough. She has nice hands to give the wretched girl her due, but don't you think her bust is too developed for her age? I repeat, Mrs. Worthington, sweet Mrs. Worthington, don't put your daughter on the stage. Regarding yours, dear Mrs. Worthington, of Wednesday the 23rd, although your baby may be keen on a stage career, how do I make it clear that this is not a good idea for her to hope? Dear Mrs. Worthington is on the face of it absurd. Her personality is not in reality inviting enough, exciting enough for this particular sphere. Don't put your daughter on the stage, Mrs. Worthington. Don't put your daughter on the stage. She's a bit of an ugly duckling, you must honestly confess. And the width of her seat would surely defeat her chances of success. It's a loud voice, and though it's not exactly flat, she'll need a little more than that to earn a living wage. On my knees, Mrs. Worthington. Please, Mrs. Worthington, don't put your daughter on the stage. You know you want to. said at the School of Acting she was lovely as Peer Gynt. I'm afraid on the whole an ingenue would emphasize her squint. She's a big girl, though her teeth are fairly good. She's not the type I ever would be eager to engage. No more buts, Mrs. Worthington, not Mrs. Worthington. Don't put your daughter on the stage. That's a suffice, Mrs. Worthington. Christ, Mrs. Worthington. Don't put your daughter on the stage. And once again, May Cloudwood.
Oh, perfect. You're all fantastic. I think she's really happy. So, a few thank yous. Sydney Meyer, Tanya Moberly, thank you. My son, Anna DiCarlo. Very generous to Hannah and Adrian. Natasha for filming this for Sally's family. Hannah, my partner in Sally Crime, for this day and so many things. And the family, the Wingfields, and you, sir. We've heard about, all the different paths. I met Sally, I think my first memory is Groovin' on a Sunday. Thank you, Anne McCormick and Woody Regan. And then, of course, Tanya's salon. And then together, the women, Jeff, all, and we became really good friends. And then a pandemic happened, and we began that Zoom. And through that Zoom, Sally was always the first logged on. So we began, and she was that calm voice, that steady, she'd say, steady on, steady on, steady on. I gotta get it right, damn it. How do you say it? It's a great expression though. And then when we stopped the Zoom because we were all getting outside, I realized that Sally was still very much inside and was going to stay inside. So we began a private Zoom on Sundays for about 3 years, and we did holidays together because we both struggled through the holidays. And that's when the real bond began. And Menagerie was dreamed up, and really wanting her to do those shows, really pushing her to do those shows in her living room.
Yeah.
But she was determined to have us remember her the way she was. She didn't want to sit in a chair on a stage. I was like, we don't care about the chair. But she did things on her terms, and I really respect that. But the greatest gift that Sally gave me was to allow me to be part of her care. She was very proud, she was very stubborn, she was very much an Aries. Private, elegant, a great actress, even on Zoom, but we were putting together that stuff was happening. She was getting thinner, she was dehydrated, we were worried. Thank God she let us call 911, and Anna and Sally and I into the ambulance, went to the Brooklyn Hospital, and she was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. Becca was huge to spend every day with her. And then we got her home into a beautiful bed facing her garden with her oxygen, thinking she had weeks.
No.
She had 9 months. She lived in that bed for 9 months with her curiosity, her creativity, her imagination, her counseling, her ability to see the beauty in things. And I would go for my weekly visits, and we would talk about things. And I was very grateful because my last visit was the Friday before she died. It was April 17th. And the day before, she was sleeping so deeply that her caregiver said, I don't know what you're going to find. You can sit and watch her sleep. I said, I'll sit and watch her sleep. Well, that Friday, she perked up. And I walked in, as I always did, saying, the prodigal sister has arrived. She was, there she is. And we would do our dance, and I sat by the bed, And she wanted her cookies, and she wanted her ice cream, and she wanted just a little nip. Just a little nip. Caregiver was really mad at me. I'm like, what? Just a little nip. And then we got to talking, and I asked her about Cedar Hall. I just said, Sally, how was it decorated? She talked about a big portrait of George Washington. She goes, that's what they did then. We had portraits of George Washington. And then she spoke of Christmas Eve and how her favorite memory as a child would be midnight Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. Carolers would come from house to house to house and sing beneath the windows of Cedar Hall. And in this case, it was a group of male baritone carolers, descendants of slaves. And Sally would just listen and listen and listen to these voices. And then she would sense that her grandmother had opened the front door, had invited the men in. Sally would run down the staircase in her nightgown and sit, as her grandmother served them coffee and donuts, and she would just listen to these voices and hear their stories. And then she imitated them for me. She said, "Oh, come, all ye faithful," in her bed with oxygen. And I thought, well, okay, that's how we're going to conclude this day. Because who doesn't want a little Sally Darling Christmas in July? So thank you all for coming and celebrating our sister.
Thank you, Meg.
Thank you. Please return to your song sheets. We're going to sing the first and third verse with gusto, because every day is Christmas as far as I'm concerned, Miss Sally.
Wow.